Good evening, fellow morons. It's actually quite good to be saying this myself this week rather than hearing someone else stealing my lines last week. Thanks for stepping in and starting the podcast off last week, Daniel. I appreciate that. Now that I can be back and speaking, I'm sure everyone's buzzing to be hearing my voice. They'll have missed it. No?
We never got a chance.
I was just hoping you were going to get a silence there. Oh, I don't know what.
Start again, since we're not live, just fucking start again.
Okay, you just edit in a silence anyway.
Do that.
That's it. I'll fucking shit all over myself by adding a silence in to make it out that you bastards didn't miss me at all. You know, as Daniel's pointed out, we're not actually live. I think this is the first ever time that we've recorded without being live. So yeah, there probably will be a lot of edits and cuts added in there. So thanks for listening into the podcast as well. But guys, I know there was like 3 of yous last week. I was obviously here and listening at that point. Sean was away gallivanting on one of his many, many holidays that he typically has. I was suffering with an injury, we'll call it.
An injury? You ate too many sweets. An injury.
An injury sounds better than having fucking tooth decay. But I did miss talking about the movies for last week. Who can remind me of what the movies were that we did review without me and Sean last week?
Silence of the Lambs.
See, that's where the silence comes in, Sean. The silence comes in when you ask the boys to remember something, knowing it's to slag somebody off.
And our one's The Usual Suspects.
That's it. So Silence of the Lambs, which came into our top 4 with a really good score of a 4.63, and The Usual Suspects came in, I believe, in the late 60s. I'm just scrolling down here. You're thinking of this organised. It's coming in at number 70 actually. Typically it was one out. A 2.5 scored by the Morons. Now obviously these scores are a little bit different to what they typically are, as they are only from 4 people. Sean's not giving his scores yet, but we are taking a break next week, so there'll be no podcast release next week due to someone having to get some treatment done once again, basically fucking up the whole plan for everybody. But Sean's going to catch up on these movies during our week off, which Sean will be buzzing. It's quite good for Sean to have to actually do a little bit extra when the boys can have a week off for once.
I just never stopped working. It's just fucking beginning to take a toll on me.
You had a full week off last week. You stopped working then.
Note the sarcasm, you daft tube, you.
I was being sarcastic back at you too, because you always talk about how much you love watching all these films to us.
I can't wait to bring down the score of Silence of the Lambs, by the way.
I genuinely believe that you'll give Silence of the Lambs a 5.
What are you saying?
I genuinely believe that you'll give Silence of the Lambs a 5.
Oh, really?
Oh no, I'm worried.
I'm not hitting that point 5.
I think if he scores it really low, we just ignore his score and just say that it doesn't account because he didn't watch it in time. I'm voting for that.
Right, somebody else called Sean Field on Twitter and ask for their score.
But bear in mind, if he does give it a 5, it'll probably push it above Spider-Man, so there's a bit of an incentive.
Yeah.
Is that
Guys, stop influencing scores.
Right, anyway guys, we're not here to talk about last week's scores. Let's talk about this week's ones. So the movies that we reviewed this week were Hunter's picks. Hunter, do you want to announce to everyone what your picks were?
Yes, so these were my picks. I didn't think or wish these two to win, but here we are reviewing these 2 movies, and the 2 we've got this week are Reservoir Dogs and Dead Poets Society.
This is a common theme for you, Hunter, eh? Like, oh, Hunter, tell us about your... Like, I didn't actually like any of these. I didn't think it would win. But...
I just chucked them in because they were available.
It's quite shocking that Dead Poets Society did win, because I don't think from our audience it seemed like the one that would be well known, but maybe it's the Robin Williams effect. But we will come on to that one later. I think Reservoir Dogs is a really good place for us to start off with. I believe someone's just finished watching this not long before the stream has started. Reservoir Dogs came out in 1992. It's directed by everyone's favourite director in here, Quentin Tarantino. Honestly, I'll be fucking glad when we're done with Tarantino.
We've got 1 minute. We've got 1 minute to go after this because the Hateful Eight we're just no doing. There's no we're going to go up for votes. So
no watching the Hateful Eight.
No, so once upon a time in Hollywood, essentially to complete the collection.
Oh, well, you know what I'm going to add to my list of movies when I shaft you all when I get selected from the wheel. So, when a simple jewellery heist goes horribly wrong, the surviving criminals begin to suspect that one of them is a police informant. A movie that's in the top 91 movies on IMDb. So let's see if the morons are going to keep it anywhere near that heights. But we'll all come to the man that selected it first of all. Mr. Scott Hunter, take it away.
Just before we go to Hunter, when you say the top 91, do you mean 91st?
Joe, it's funny.
91 out of 91.
I've read it how it appears on IMDb. It says top rated movies 91. I've read it as the top 91.
Sorry, carry on.
Right, smart ass. Guess who's cutting that part out?
It's creating me work for you.
Fucking silencing you for the whole time, Daniel.
The fact that we just talk shite and nobody gets to fix it or correct it and we make mistakes all the time, it's part of the charm. You're no editing it.
No, definitely not, because that's too much fucking work and I can't be arsed doing that. I'll have to add something in to cut that out. No, thank you. Sorry, Hunter, please take it away.
Reservoir Dogs. This was genuinely, I think, my first time watching it, and this is definitely a film that has been hyped up because it's Quentin Tarantino. It is, I wouldn't say it's god awful, but it's so underwhelming, I believe, to what the hype around it is. Obviously, his token appearance in, much to, I'd imagine, will be Sean's grievance that he managed to shoot on and go for himself into the film. But all that I've said, I mean, for this is probably the definition of a film where there's so much going on, but there's not enough going on at the same time. Where, I mean, I feel like it cuts out so much. Like I've not got where we come to this trivia, but I read it when I was doing my trivia research. It was like it's always voted in the top percentile for heist movies. But this is the one film where you don't actually see the heist taking place. You just kind of got to deal with the pre-heist and the consequences of the heist. But for all that I've sort of mentioned it there are some good acting performances in this. I mean, Steve Buscemi is absolutely outstanding in this. And again, a little bit of trivia where it's down, but I did read it. So what apparently was, so Quentin Tarantino had actually given himself Steve Buscemi's role. And Steve Buscemi came out to read for it and basically told him, you're not getting it unless you blow me out the Flatbush audition, and that's what he did. And obviously, they then followed it up into the role itself. And he's the show stealer for me. Obviously, he's then went on and had such an esteemed career off the back of it. But again, I feel like it's so lost. I think, obviously, because a lot of the sympathy that this film gets is because it's Tarantino was obviously independent at the time, and a lot of it is. You can tell it's his first movie, and I think a lot of sympathy maybe gets given because it's his first movie. And maybe if it wasn't his first, or if this was a lot later in his career, we'd probably get a much more polished and much more delivered film. But for me, I think it does lose a lot now. I mean, even Pulp Fiction, which came out a couple of years later, I think is the levels above this, and it's still not even a masterpiece. But again, it's just. I think it's definitely one of those films where it came out at the time and maybe it stood out at the time, like that 90s nostalgia where it was ahead of the game, the curve at that point in time. But now, here we are, was it 30 plus years later since it came out, it's just not held its own like it maybe once did. And I do feel that, although there were some aspects of it, some great performances, even I think pretty much everyone that's in the main character, I mean, Michael Madsen is great in it as well, Tim Roth, Harvey Keitel, everyone is great in this, in their role. It's just, there's just something missing from it. I don't know what I was expecting from it, but I don't know that Tarantino sparkle that maybe appeared maybe in his later films. There is definitely something missing from this for me. But it is, for me, when you consider a lot of the factors regarding it being their first production of Quentin Tarantino's, it does deserve some credit, but it should not be anywhere near regarded in the elite level that some people seem to put it in.
Do you not think that like part of what's missing from it is maybe a bit better background about who these people are to actually care about them?
Definitely. That's what I wrote down as well.
I don't want to jump into this, Mark, really, but I couldn't disagree more with the point that you have just made. Like, I think that's the whole point of this movie, is that they're anonymous, you know nothing about them, and you don't want to give a fuck about them, do
They obviously make that point clear. They make that point clear that they don't want to know about each other to an extent.
Yeah.
But what I'm more meaning is the fact that Hunter's describing how something's not sat there from him, and this might be a victim of seeing it for a later viewing or seeing it here like, what's that, fucking 30 years later or whatever, where we have watched it before, so you know what happens and you know what roles it to play. So for me, I would like to know a little bit more about them, but that's just because when I watch a movie, my preference is to know a real background story. Like, for example, the Dark Knight trilogy, Batman Begins is by far my favourite because it's more about a background than what the other ones are. It's just something that I prefer. But I do think it's like, it would add to it. It probably could have done with an extra half hour. It's not often we say that a movie should have a little bit longer, but get a wee bit longer in there.
They went once at halfway in as well. They also introduced each character and then gave you a wee bit of background. But then it was either to me, it was either go all in and tell you loads about them, or make it as if you actually don't know anything. They gave you like a wee bit of insight, which I thought just made it silly.
So I think the only insight they gave you really was Michael Madsen's character and the cop. Mm-hmm. The only two you really got any background on.
Yeah, proper background. Obviously, with Tim Roth's character, you got a lot of his his undercover sort of build up to his character undercover. That's so you kind of really got invested in him as a character within it.
I think it would have been much better without those two parts, rather than adding in more background for everybody else. I would have preferred not to have seen Vinny Vega go to the office and meet the boss and all that, and and they have the fucking wrestling match and all that, which was fucking weird. And I'd not have known Tim Roth was a cop until the moment he told Harvey Keitel he was a cop. And to me, this misses this with the structure. What
would you have filled that time with? Like, more about the actual heist itself?
No.
Or the actual heist, not even the heist. We could have maybe just seen that immediate aftermath when they emerged from the back, and they've got I know we kind of seen a bit of it, but they emerge, obviously Steve Buscemi then does the carjack, but that immediate aftermath when they kind of all, like, I think maybe you could have added a bit more in there, although we were never going to see the heist, you could have added in maybe a bit more just before and just after.
See, this is why I love this, because some of you want more, and I wish there was a lot less, like the complete opposite. So, like, see what you're saying, what would I fill that time with? Just more of that dialogue, more of them shouting and swearing at each other, saying who the fuck's told the cops, who's fucking done it. That's my favourite bit about this film, is like the dialogue and the arguments between each other. You can tell that it's like written so frantically by Tarantino. And I think this is, I'm just jumping in here, but I think this is why he became such a highly regarded director, was how good the dialogue is in this movie. Because ultimately, right, this movie is filmed in a warehouse. There's a couple of other scenes, I swear, there's a breakfast scene, and then everything else is in a fucking warehouse. And it's mostly just guys shouting at each other and trying to figure out what the fuck's going on. And the bit that kind of loses it for me is that I wish that I was figuring it out the same as them and trying to guess, and like being in their position, is they gave it away far too early, I think, that Tim Roth's a cop undercover. And then when they go and show you him and his mate and him practicing being an undercover cop and all that, I kind of lose interest a wee bit. I think if this was an hour and a half and it was just in the warehouse, none of the fucking breakfast, none of anything else, and it was just the aftermath, I'd have fucking look. I still like this, but that would have been what would have made this better for me. I think he's tried too much to fill in the gaps rather than, I suppose, like you said, if they wanted to fill in the full background of that, this would have been a 3-hour movie. And that's what Tarantino's ended up doing later in his career. He's taken on all that advice and then sort of simplified that back movie that we watched.
Yeah,
he's made up.
I would say one of my favourite scenes for it is sharing the dialogue is see the opening scene when they're in the cafe. That for me, I really really enjoyed that because it seems like a genuine conversation. If someone was to then go around that table and not tip, you would all chin them, and it would be like it seems quite an honest perception of what that is at that point. What I mean for what I would like differently. So there's two things I'd like more about this, right? One of the movies I'd like more to be about this is the background, so I can actually be invested in the individual characters. This other part, if he didn't have that, would be give me the point of view of every Mr. Cull whatever exiting the heist. So obviously you get to see Buscemi run away, and he's running away from the cops with a bag. You then get the Harvey Keitel bit with Tim Roth and he gets shot, but let me see the other people as well. Just to have all of them to tick it all off for me. For me, with like I don't know if it's like a compulsion thing, but like I want to close that loop of seeing everything that they've done to lead up to them into the warehouse to have the big argument and the big debate and going on. The scene where he's obviously cutting the guy's ear off, right? And that's the most iconic part of this whole movie that everyone knows about. The music's really good when he's doing that scene. It is, for me, it is a proper perfect scene when it goes on. You feel the real evilness from Michael Madsen's character, which is cool because you obviously work out later on that he's Vic Vega, isn't he? That he's in the same universe as John Travolta's character. But
we'll just nip that in the bud before you steal any more of my trivia.
Yeah, stop.
That's well known. That's well known. But
I didn't know it, so thanks for ruining it for me.
Did we do spoiler alerts on this, guys? No, fuck it. We're ruining it for everybody. If you've not seen this movie 30 years after it came out, guys, come on the fuck. For me, that's the one point in this film where it's like absolute full attention, really enjoying myself in it. The other parts, because I've seen it a couple of times, I knew what was going to happen, what was going on. I knew the twists and the turns on it. So, but this is the one part where I down tools and I'm really paying attention. Sean, you've been noticeably quiet on this after a week off. We are all missing your voice, so please come in, give us your thoughts.
I'm really siding with Hunter here. It's no secret, like I really don't like Tarantino, or I don't really like his films. I've kind of learned that through us doing this. This is just another one to add to the Tarantino list that I don't like and I don't particularly get. I expected more for it, as Hunter said. I thought that this was, I must have been correct, I thought this was regarded as like it was this and Pulp Fiction were his best ones. But I just like, there's so much going on, but there's so little actually happening. And I'll come to Tarantino himself in a minute, but the constant jumping back and forth between the warehouse and then obviously going back to wee kind of mini background stories. I've never really been a fan of that kind of method, whether it's in film or TV show, kind of flashback types. I'm just not a big fan of it at all. I agree with what Daniel's saying about kind of it would have been good to find out as it kind of went along instead of obviously with the background stuff. Tarantino his role itself was just absolutely pointless. Could have been done by anybody. He was in the opening scene, and he was in one of the flashbacks where he was driving the car, and then he's died. Was he Mr. Brown? I think he was. I just really, I just have a really strong dislike of it, like for him, and I tried to put that to the side when I was watching this because I knew that it would kind of make my mind up on the film, but I don't know, I just don't really get it. I thought the blood as well, and it's a kind of theme through Tarantino's films. I don't know if it's on purpose of that, but it just looks so fake as well. And obviously his films are known for a lot of violence and stuff, but it just looks like really runny tomato sauce that they're covered in. When Stephen Samuel was in the back of the car at first, before we'd seen how he got shot, I was like, that just looks fucking ridiculous. And then at the end, obviously, when he's just lying in the wee ramp in the warehouse, at the end through the kind of full film, he's just sitting in a puddle of tomato sauce, it looks like. Obviously, it is an older film, fair enough, but I just can't. I just don't get Tarantino. I don't get his films. I didn't particularly like this, and I know that there'll be folk in the comments on Instagram that'll be they're starting their usual piss, giving it 5 out of 5 and questioning our existence as a human being because we don't like a certain film. But no, it's not really for me. But on a kind of positive side, it's already been touched on. But the acting performances again were really good. I thought Tim Roth was absolutely brilliant, but it's just no saving it for me. I never want to see another Tarantino film again in my life. I actually kind of thought that this was supposed to be one of his better ones, but it's for me it's doing the Hateful Eight, like fucking garbage.
Is the Hateful Eight that bad?
It's fucking hell, man, terrible,
so bad. But the one I genuinely thought that I thought of all the Tarantino movies, this might be the one you would like, Sean, because I think it's the least Tarantino. I think Tarantino's got worse and worse as the years have gone on, where leaning in towards the sort of typical Tarantino tropes that we talk about, like the too much blood and.
It's just the kind of layout of it. Like, see, like Lost when that was on TV, right? Obviously, when that first series of Lost kind of was absolutely brilliant. And the thing I hated about it was the flashbacks. I bored me to tears. I had no interest in them at all. And because I just wanted to see what was happening on the island and stuff like that, in the here and now as it was. And ever since watching Lost, I've had a real dislike for films or TV shows that do flashback style, whether it's episodes or periods in films. I just totally switched off. I have no idea why, but when they were doing it when it was happening here, I just switched off. And my thing with Tarantino that I don't particularly enjoy his work or his films. It didn't really help, obviously, but that's probably my own fault for not being able to separate that. But it's just totally no for me at all. That is a kind of small thing, and I know that it was probably needed in this film. If they weren't going to show the heist and stuff like that, they can't just have them in a warehouse for an hour and a half saying, you're a rat, no, you're a cop, blah, blah, blah. I know they need to add some context to what's actually happened to the guys, but I just turn off when it does wee flashback stuff. But the Tarantino himself just had no reason to be in this film at all, other than to feed that fucking weird ego he has. His character was fucking pointless. Could have been played by anybody, any young aspiring actor trying to get his foot in the door at Hollywood or whatever would have done. That would have been a good role for somebody. But he again has to put his cell in there.
Just that, because they didn't even actually need that character there. Like, he crashed.
No, I know.
So like,
he was in three scenes. He was in the opening scene. He was in the scene when they were giving it the names, and then he was in the scene where he crashed the car and died. That absolutely pointless. Because when obviously when it opened with him in the diner or the restaurant, whatever it was, and I heard his voice, and I was like, "Oh, you're fucking joking me!" And it was like, straight away. He's the first thing we hear. I'm not sure he's the first character we see. We think it's the back end we see. But I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me on, man?" But that could have been played by anybody. Some poor wee young actors play a fucking audition for that role. Because if Hunter's Trivia, which he's going to talk about, obviously, if that's correct, which it is, I'm not doubting you, but like he obviously never had this part for him in mind. He had another part for him in mind. So somebody would have auditioned for this role. And it's a small role, so it would have been somebody that's not going to be a big name or anything. So it would have been some poor wee cunt trying to get his name out there, try to start his career in acting, and this selfish cunt who's already making money after the film, he's fucking written it and all that. He has to get his fucking head in. Oh, he's a vile person, man.
Oh, I've been waiting for this whole time. I was like, he's been quite calm about Tarantino and I suppose I'm following for you, Sean, right? Because I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I probably like it more than you like it, but I totally agree on the whole flashback issue. Now, maybe that's because it's been done to death over the last 30 years of TV and film that we've seen so many times now this idea Now, I don't know if this was the first time it was sort of done like this, or if it's a previous sort of film issue, but the whole idea then, you're getting a certain aspect of the story, and then it's like, oh, let's go back and fill in that gap, let's go back and fill in this gap. I'm like, I've not got time for that, personally. Like I said earlier on when Hunter was giving his thoughts, for me, if this had gone from the opening scene I love, I actually think it's fucking amazing how long it spends. A good 10 minutes of them talking to the table, arguing over tips at breakfast, arguing over what does like a virgin mean, and see the wee debates over what like a virgin is all about. I just thought that was fucking cool. And although Tarantino's got hundreds of flaws, he does have his dialogue is fucking strong. Like, every conversation did feel like a real conversation. Although these people are psychopaths and mental, but it all came across like real conversations being had by real people, and that's maybe that saves it a wee bit for me. One thing I'm going to mention is, and this might be, in fact I'm going to say, I think this is my favourite ever soundtrack for the movie. I had the CD of this when I was a teenager. Every single song of it is fucking brilliant. The cuts to the radio being like the theme in the background, where do you notice, I don't know if this will be in your trivia, it's probably too small time for your trivia, Hunter, but Stephen Wright, the comedian, do any of you know who he is?
No.
So there's a comedian called Stephen Wright who's got that sort of really long, dull voice, and he delivers these jokes like this. He's got a really deep voice. He's the guy that's the voiceover in all the radio shows doing all the introductions of the songs. And I love his wee bits. And when I had the soundtrack, it has his little introductions for the radio show in between every track and all that. But to tie in with some of the criticisms, I do definitely agree with a lot of them. It's just a pretty disjointed and a bit all over the place, and there's too many unnecessary scenes. And I know Sean said you couldn't just have it all in the warehouse, but I would have just had it all in the fucking warehouse. And I think that would have been a much better. Saying that, there's so many great scenes, and when I say scenes, I mean short pieces where maybe, see when it's just Steve Buscemi and Harvey Keitel arguing for a good solid maybe 5 or 6 minutes. I loved that, man. I was like all in on that. When Michael Madsen's character comes in, he's a bit unbelievable as a character for me. I didn't really buy into him at all. Like, sort of like this sort of silent psychopath type, but then he was toy fighting with Chris Penn's character and sort of being a bit aloof. None of it sort of tied in that well with me with his character. And then he just starts torturing the cop, and I didn't really quite see where they were going with it. I mean, is he just a murdering psychopath? Or is he really smart and he's thinking this cop is fucking, he does know something and I'm going to get out of him by... And maybe he was going to get out of him, maybe the cop was going to eventually say it until Tinder fucking shot him. But at that point, Harvey Keitel's character starts to annoy me because he's supposed to be pretty big time. You can tell that he's pretty big time in this, right? Because he's the one that knows the boss personally. And he was able to steal his wee book and put it in his pocket and say, "You're not getting your book back," right? So they must be at a similar level in the fucking crime world, right? So Harvey Keitel should know he should know about all this shit, but he comes across really naive all the time. Like, so Steve Buscemi had to keep explaining to him, like, what the fuck was going on. And he was like, pay attention. Stop being fucking stupid. And he's like, why are you telling him your name? Why are you telling him where you fucking live? Like, he's meant to be the guy. If they give me some sort of background that one of the guys was very inexperienced, right? And that's where this is all come from, that he's giving away all this information. But he's supposed to be the sort of smart guy, right? And then by the end, it's so obvious that Tim Roth is the fucking cop or the fucking that, right? It's so obvious. Like, the story he told about fucking shooting that guy, right? And whatever his name is, the fucking Big Joe or whatever comes in, and he's like, it's definitely you because it doesn't make sense. And he's right, it doesn't make any sense. And the fact that Harvey Keitel's going all out to try and defend this guy that he met last week is fucking nonsense. It's sort of, I lose interest at that point. And see when the three of them all aim the guns at each other and they all shoot each other up down, shite.
And also, just when you're saying about how it was obviously he was a cop, remember it before the heist and they're in the car together and Harvey Keitel's character's asking the guy that's the cop, oh, what would you do if this happens? He's explaining to him what he would do if something goes wrong. Like, so if he's asking all these questions, if he's never been involved in this kind of stuff before, it's so obvious even back then from his character, you'd be dubious about him. Whereas he's like, oh no, he's a really sound guy and everything, it would definitely wouldn't be him. Even going back to that stage, for me, it was so obvious that he was the top, which I didn't like as well.
I was quite interested to come to you about this because last week was a big twist in a movie that you've not seen Usual Suspects, so we won't tell you what happened, Sean. But it's where having a big twist, right? And normally, if you've never seen it, you wouldn't really see it coming. Whereas Bunzy, one of his complaints last week was that he saw it coming early. So I was interested to see how early you realised Tim Roth was the guy.
I know. Well, I didn't realise it. I was kind of had an inkling at that point when they were in the car together. But then as it goes further on, you're convinced it's going to be him, which obviously does ruin it a wee bit. I thought I thought the opening scene when they were at the cafe was like, although I didn't really know what was going on in terms of who was who. Obviously, it was really good, and like you'd said, the dialogue throughout the film was class. I disagree about. I thought Michael Madsen's character. I thought he was a star in it. I thought he was class. I thought his character was just really believable as this sort of person who didn't give a toss, and like even just subtle things, how the way he was like leaning back against stuff. It was just like, I'm the man, basically. But he actually portrayed that really well, I thought, along with the stuff he was saying. Music was class, as has been touched on before. But it's like most of the points sort of went as we were going on, but it was just one of those films where I was expecting to be the outlier in terms of, I thought Sean would hate it just because it was enjoy it because it was a Tarantino one, but I thought Hunter was going to love it. I thought maybe you'd seen it before and maybe really enjoyed it, and that's maybe why you'd picked it. And then I thought Daniel and Kyle would really love it too, but it was just because they didn't go all in the characters or told you nothing. It was kind of just stuck in between. So I don't know what point they were trying to get across, whether they wanted you to really care about them or whether it was meant to be a mystery. Whereas to me, it was just kind of, you just didn't know what side of the fence they were trying to go with it. And then comparing it to like the other Tarantino films that we've watched, like the two Kill Bill and Pulp Fiction, it's nowhere even close to that kind of level. Like those other ones are just so superior to this, which I'm quite disappointed because when I saw it, I was thinking I was actually really looking forward to it. I know it's decent, it's not. I was thinking it might have been something that we're going to put really highly, but obviously based on what I've just said so far, it looks as if that's not really the case.
It's definitely going to be a scenario where we piss a lot of people off on Instagram. Just to come back to the kind of Mexican standoff that the Harvey Keitel, the big boss, and Chris Penn are having at that point, right? One thing that's always bothered me with this scene is, how does Harvey Keitel manage to shoot both of them?
He doesn't.
No, it doesn't matter.
Buscemi shoots Chris Penn.
There's three of them. There's 3 or 4 of them, I can't remember, and they all shoot different folk.
So what Kyle's saying, it's no obvious, right? So Harvey Keitel's got a gun at the boss has got a gun at Tim Roth, right? Mm-hmm. And Chris Penn has his gun at Harvey Keitel. Right, so in theory, there's nobody to kill Chris Penn in the little triangle. Right?
Oh, okay.
Steve Buscemi's hiding.
Yeah, yeah.
But Buscemi's hiding, and Steve Buscemi, I believe anyway, so I think that what you're meant to understand is Steve Buscemi kills Chris Penn and puts the diamond.
Just to jump in there.
He's read the situation, and thought, if this goes the way it's going to go, I'm going to fucking run away with the fucking diamonds, happy days.
Yeah.
So to jump in there and quash that, guys, I was doing a bit of research in the back when we were talking about it because it's really annoyed me, and it's confirmed that in the movie Reservoir Dogs, who shot Chris Penn's character? Harvey Keitel's character, Mr. White, shoots Nice Guy Eddie. So I'm looking at a little gift set here, and he makes a slight motion towards Chris Penn after he's shot, which is to indicate that he shot him because he gets shot in the chest. So Steve Buscemi's character couldn't have shot Nice Guy Eddie from where he was. So Keitel manages to kill both of them whilst getting shot and killed himself.
Oh, that's
right.
No, not you. I mean in terms of the film, sorry, in case you thought I was saying you were stupid.
No. Because
it was obvious, and then obviously it's no obvious, and it just makes it sound stupid now.
I've genuinely just taken 0.25 off my score for that.
What I'll do is I'll save it to the computer and I'll send it to you boys in the chat after to show you the bit where he makes a millimetre change in his angle and there's no way you can even reach him, and You see the recoil in Chris Penn's chest and where he's being shot and killed. So yeah, that was because when I watched it at the time, I was like, that makes no sense. Because I first thought, has Tim Roth's character shot Chris Penn at this point? That would have made more logical sense.
It would have made sense as well because they spent a lot of time hyping up the fact he had a gun in his shoe, a tiny little gun in his shoe.
Mm-hmm.
We expect to see him use that tiny little gun in his shoe.
You also see from the gif of Tim Roth's character actually repels backwards to lie on his back after the shooting. So like just put the gun in his hand and that actually fixes that whole scene. Whereas looking at it for this, and like I say, I'll share it with you, and maybe some worthwhile putting on the Instagram as well later, Daniel, to ask people who shot Chris Penn, because it's a bit of a mystery at this point. That was one of the things I took away as a note from me of like, who actually done it, and it made no sense in a Mexican standoff that surely there should have been one person that wins there.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I assumed Steve Buscemi off camera had shot the last guy, and then they fucked off. Like that was what made more sense to me, because I think it's another point in the movie as well, because early on they make a point of establishing Harvey Keitel with two guns, shooting the cops, guns and shooting simultaneously, right? So if you wanted to have Harvey Keitel kill both of them, just have
Two guys,
Yep. It was another thing I was looking for when I was looking at it. I was like, does he have two guns in there that I've not clocked when we've been watching this? But I mean, I know this is a little tiny thing to pick up on, but I think it's a major plot hole when it comes to what you're expecting from it.
It's not even a plot hole though, really. It's the fact that obviously they think that people have picked up, me and Daniel have picked up the simple thing, and then they've went, oh no, that's not actually what happened. We've decided this other way it's going to happen that makes it even more ridiculous. Because if you read it and we said and the agreement was with what we had thought, then obviously you'd be like, oh well, you'd have been like, well, I didn't understand how you picked it up. It makes sense. I don't get it.
So,
as well, actually.
Just bringing the score down even more with the with the gift that's coming there, but I'll share it with you later, and you can make your own viewings from it at that point. Hunter, do you want to jump into trivia if no one's got anything else to add to this underwhelming movie?
Yes, I will do. So the film budget was so low that many of the actors were actually asked to bring their own clothing for wardrobe for the film. The budget also wouldn't allow for police assistance for traffic control, so when Steve Buscemi's character carjacks that lady, those scenes could only be shot when the lights were green so that they hold up any traffic at the back of them. So basically they were shooting they scene in live traffic. So as it was touched on already, I believe we've possibly touched on it with the Pulp Fiction trivia. So Vince Vega and Vic Vega were brothers. And Quentin Tarantino actually wanted to shoot a film called The Double V Vega, but by the time he got around to actually writing it, both of the John Travolta and Michael Myers had aged that much that they couldn't retry to go back to do a prequel. The film never happened, but I have been confirmed that the Vega brothers are actually that's a real thing. In America, when the film was released, it had no promotion, so it did not do well at the box office. However, we've got the UK to thank for this being such a box office hit because it was brought on by here, and I think it's very obvious that the following that bit of trivia was that it's influenced British gangster films, and I think that's quite obvious that a lot of them use this staple as a stencil, a blueprint to move forward from that. That's quite obvious.
A stencil!
A staple pencil and a blueprint.
Stationary bingo, that's what that was.
That's the name of the podcast so far. Reservoir Dogs is a stencil for other gangster movies.
Daniel, you have said that this was your favourite soundtrack.
Yeah.
However, when the film was first done, the entire soundtrack budget was spent on Stuck in the Middle with You. It was then told the producers managed to secure a record deal that they were then able to add in extra songs so they could actually make a full soundtrack. There was only ever meant to be one song in that full film to begin with.
And where the band Steelers Field that sings Stuck in the Middle of You, where are they from? They're from Dundee. There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
Dundee. And also, I know you touched on it with the radio stuff. When they're driving in the car, the president comes through for Jack Rabbit's Runs, which is a 1950s restaurant with a $5 milkshake and they do the dancing in Pulp Fiction. So the advert for that restaurant comes through on the radio. In the car.
I quite like that.
So I quite like the fact that both films are in the same universe, but it's just
Aye. Well, you've cut out, haven't you?
So no, I paused for thought.
The pause for thought was I'll fill the gap in there as a factually accurate podcast that we typically are. Steelers Wheeler from Paisley.
Paisley, sorry, I knew they were Scottish, mate.
you went a layer too deep there, Daniel. Scottish would have settled it fine.
Mate, I should have just said fucking Scotland. Fuck's sake.
No, Hunter, that's awesome. Is there any other trivia you want to add in for there?
I think I've got, apart from it, I mean, a lot is just about the voted best independent movie, stuff like that, but we've kind of touched on that with my description of the movie. There's nothing more than, but I know that there is actual hundreds. Again, a lot is to do with the individual characters and a lot of Tarantino's, because it was a start-up movie essentially, but there's nothing more groundbreaking. There's just a lot of trivia.
One of the things that I searched after this was because I always like try to guess where things will be cut, right? So I wanted to know, like, was the ear cutting scene available everywhere? But they actually cut it out of the movie in the Finnish VHS release. So could you imagine watching this movie where that whole scene's just cut out?
I mean, you don't even see anything in it. Like, the best thing about the scene is the fact that the camera slowly pans away and you don't see the violence. It's left to your own imagination.
Yeah.
Like, it's the best thing about it.
Yeah, scene just completely cut out from there. Daniel, I'm going to...
I know that you mentioned that. There was a bit of thing, Kyle. I think with the torture scene, where that will be what's his name? Harvey Weinstein actually wanted that cut because he thought it was too gruesome. And you think, the things that guy's done, and he's thought somebody cutting somebody's ear was a bit gruesome.
They should cut his fucking ear off, man.
Just a ear.
If you want.
You can have a John Bobbitt and cut his wire off too.
I don't stop at the ear.
Well, it took us, to be fair, guys, it took us 43 minutes to talk about some fucking sexual abuse. I think that's progression for us.
Well, Harvey Weinstein getting his cock chopped off, that's not going to get us cancelled. People would like that.
That's not a bad thing.
That's a service to society.
Talking them up.
Well, to be fair, Sean, is it a shock that we're talking about the likes of him and Tarantino in the same sentence?
Not at all.
We'll leave Sean to contact TMZ about his thoughts on what Tarantino when he inevitably gets announced for some sort of misconduct that has happened. But I think we should swiftly move on to get scoring this, Daniel. I'm going to assume that we had a lot of fanboys for this on Instagram when it came to scores.
That would probably be a really safe assumption, except I forgot to put it up for scores on Instagram this week. So, what we'll do is we'll put our scores up and then I'll put a wee story up going, what would you have scored it? And maybe that'll be the way forward for this. So every week we'll talk about how people disagreed with last week's scores rather than get the scores first. I don't know. I'm just winging it now.
Eventually, Derek, I think I put your score and then another one on the back of it saying, if people want to back your score up with a comment, and then that way we've got comment content as well.
That would be a good way for people to vent their frustration directly at us as well, without it muddying the waters of the comment section every single time that we put something up. If you do want to get involved in your scores and your thoughts on the movies that we do review, please jump onto Instagram and follow Morons Reviewing Movies. We are so close to hitting 2,000 followers. I'd love to do that by the end of February. I think that would be awesome. So if anyone is listening that hasn't already followed, please jump on and give us a little follow. Now, boys, I think it's time to score the movies ourselves. It's good to have all 5 of us here. It seems quite rare. But we're going to start off with the man that selected this movie as one of his top 16. Scott Hunter, give us your score to kick it off.
Right, I'm going to add a caveat as in saying that 16 random movies that were available in our review. But I thought I was going to say my top 16 movies of all time. So as we kind of touched on, it's kind of massively underwhelmed. However, there is some great. There are some plus points that the movie just need to be given credit for. I mean, I know we sort of mentioned about the dialogue scene at the beginning, but you look at how much that and then evolved into the dialogue scene with Inglourious Basterds, that opening credit, like how much he's raised the game. But I mean, the foundations have been laid. So I will score this 2.5 out of 5.
2.5, sitting with Skelfs in his arse there on the fence, Mr. Scott Hunter. The man that made us watch Fear and Loathing. Daniel?
It was a 3.5, but now it's a 3.25.
A 3.25 for the Mexican standoff that wasn't a Mexican standoff. Burnsy?
I did sub Skells and Mars, but because of the comment you made, Phil, it's now down to a 2.25.
A 2.25. I'm going to bring it slightly back up and join Hunter with the Skells on the 2.5. A bit disjointed for me, but a couple of really memorable things that I did enjoy. Tarantino fanboy, you are up last.
There's no Skells from Mars. I'm giving it a 1.5.
A 1.5. Sean, what's the highest scoring you've given to a Tarantino movie?
I don't know. I actually really like Inglourious Basterds, I do.
Oh.
So I must give credit for that one, but like the rest of it's just a shower of shite.
And Inglourious Basterds is the one that I really didn't like. So it's interesting. What I do think is really funny and what's really, really good is the way that we contrast each other when it comes to scoring movies. Like, there's no consistency between us. It's all our feelings towards it. Like, I can really enjoy a movie like this, which is good, but still only give it a 2.5. And then Inglourious Basterds, which is in some people's top 5 movies all time, I fucking hated. It's interesting. What makes us unique, guys? Burnsy, what does that give it overall?
Overall, that's a 2.4.
A 2.4. So we scored. That's actually lower than the Usual Suspects from last week. So let me just scroll down the leaderboard and find out where it sits. 2.4 brings this joint alongside The Fugitive, a Sean favourite in Hocus Pocus, and a controversial scoring that we gave to the movie Up, which got a lot of backlash from my...
You personally, or...
Aye, from my better half only. So joint 73rd will be Reservoir Dogs. It will be just in front of Up due to alphabetical order.
I think that's a pretty fair place for it. And then I was quite glad to see different scores. See, over the last sort of 2 or 3 weeks, we've all been pretty close to each other with our scores, which is a bit boring, but there's quite a range in these ones, which makes it more exciting for me.
I there and say that I thought it was on par with Usual Suspects, and by complete shock to myself, I scored The Usual Suspects 2.25 as well. So I must actually be getting better at my scoring now. It's only taken us over 100 movies.
Well, Burns, if you want to calm down with the consistency, that'd be ideal. We didn't like that.
Well, sorry.
No, that's not the mantra for the podcast.
It's not the moron way, but movies in its company. It's just below The Usual Suspects, Marriage Story, and Drive. It's just above Gone Girl, Hotel Rwanda, and everyone's favourite movie, The Conjuring. Daniel, The Conjuring.
Once Sean gives his score for Usual Suspects, this will then be above Usual Suspects what it should be.
Well, there we go. We'll make
in my opinion.
Make some thoughts on that there. But guys, just obviously a quick plug to the socials. We mentioned Instagram earlier. If you are listening to us, you are only listening to us on podcast this week. We are also live typically on Twitch on a Monday night at 9 p.m. If you just search for Morons Review Movies, you will find us on Twitch. So please give us a follow on there, and thank you for your listen and your download on the podcast for this week on whichever platform that you've chose to listen to us. We are just approaching 700 downloads for the podcast as well. We've had about 300 downloads in the last 30 days, so it's going really strong. So again, keep it up, keep the notifications on, and download us when it does pop up on your list. It's typically on a Tuesday at 3 p.m. If I'm on top of my game, it will be there at Tuesday at 3 p.m. Movie number 2, selected by Mr. Scott Hunter, Dead Poets Society. A movie coming out in 1989. I was only 2 at this point. Hunter would have been about 23, so it's he'd have been well aware of this movie. This is a maverick teacher, John Keaton, uses poetry to embolden his boarding school students to new heights of self-expression. Just before we go into this, right? I talked to a lot of people about the movies that we've got coming up, and a lot of people ask me, like, what are you reviewing? What's coming up? And there's a couple of movies that I found really difficult to explain, even if I've seen them and I know how good they are. And this is one of them. Explaining to somebody a movie called Dead Poets Society, where it's a group of boarding school students that talk about poetry, is a hard sell. It's a really hard sell. And the only movie I can give in comparison that we've watched recently is Whiplash, because Whiplash is a hard sell to someone who's never seen it before.
The synopsis for Whiplash.
Well, I'll let you come back to that one, but it's just the synopsis, exactly the synopsis of it. So, to give you an example, I watched Dead Poets Society today, and I was going to watch, me and the missus watched a movie last night, and the choices were between End of Watch or Dead Poets Society. Now, End of Watch has a much more appealing synopsis to it than Dead Poets Society, which End of Watch, a really good movie. It's been on the agenda a few times for us. But yeah, a really good, enjoyable movie, but it's a hard sell to explain to someone without giving away too much of what happens. But we'll push towards Hunter again. You come first. This is your movie. Take it away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I totally agree with it's a hard sell to a neutral or to a novice. How would you explain this in a selling point of view? But I suppose that's maybe kind of something that I've maybe took on board with regards to the backlash maybe we received for something like Schindler's List, where there's not maybe an enjoyment value on paper, but it is still a great film in its own right. And obviously this is what this is. I mean, the fact that the Dead Poets Society is something else that started by Robin Williams' character when he went to the Wilton High School, and then on Earth he comes back as a teacher after teaching in England, and then he takes I presume I'm very confused with the American school system. Let's just presume the equivalent of 6 years under his wing, and he's kind of like, it's a very alternative method of teaching to probably what they used to in 1959. Therefore, as you see in a couple, especially one of the scenes, it's quite hard to watch with the boys getting physically, not even just getting the belt over the wrist, but he's literally bent over the fucking headmaster's desk and getting spanked for a leather belt, which I can only presume was part of the American school system back then. But obviously he's got a very alternative way of teaching, and maybe it's something that maybe been voted on over in Britain, but I don't know for that, the parent thing. I mean, also know even corporal punishment was probably of the norm when our parents were at school. It wasn't through this a lot of time. From even when we attended school, so it would have definitely been probably in place back when this film was set, but he's came over, he's had a few alternative ways, and I think he's done great. I mean, these are this point in time when, obviously, in a boarding school where you have, and especially the age that these kids are going through, that sort of mix from you're still a child, but you're still starting to feel adult, or becoming the first few steps into being an adult, and he's treating them as that. They're not just kids. He's letting them have their own voice, and he's encouraging them to have their own voice. Which obviously we see the few half scenes. We Neil's dad and how hard he is and how he's a favourite. And I feel some of that obviously. I don't know if it's quite obviously it's very distressing to see what happens to him. I think you can see it coming. I think I maybe had. I know we talked beforehand. We came on, but I said I could only remember the end scene, obviously, which is iconic in its own right. But I could remember. But one rewatching it again for this, I could tell what was going to happen with Neil. From I couldn't remember how it happened, but I was like, I know what's going to happen with Neil here. And especially I've got a bit of trivia on it, which we'll lead to it. But obviously that is a very hard watch to go through. But even then, it's still. I mean, even with all the pupils, it's great acting performances. Robin Williams is outstanding in it, and I don't know if we got touched on it, Kyle, but obviously we got asked a question by Ben from Direct asked us, how do you think Robin Williams would get on if he was teaching in our high schools when we were at school? And for me, I think he would have been very much he would definitely, that sort of method of teaching would definitely sit a lot better with the sort of 5th and 6th year higher standard of student. But I think he would also tailor his teaching per age group. I think definitely that level of intelligence. And again, I think it's more like when you get to that sort of older level of when you're a bit older in high school, that's when you're there for a reason. You're there because you want to be taught, and I think that's when you can bring the best out of each other. You bring the best out of the teacher, you bring the best out of your student. But again, with regards to the film, it's a great performance. For even it's kind of not in the same category or the same level as Anthony Hopkins from last week with Silence of the Lambs. But again, it's one of those periods of time on screen. Obviously, it's more a film about the students than it is about Robin Williams' character. But again, he still has such a major impact on these boys, this group of boys, that it needs to be acknowledged. And it is a great performance, and it is a good film as well. And it is definitely, I would put it in one of those. How do you sell it? But you need to watch it. Yeah, if someone hasn't seen it, the suggestion was to come up with what should I watch, and if it was available, I'd say put it on.
Oh, that's a big. We don't say that often, eh? We don't say you should watch very often. That's a big recommendation for that.
And I think it's definitely a fair one because I hadn't watched this, and we discussed just off stream before we started recording, and me and Daniel had been doing this little watching Oscars things at the time, and we were watching Oscar nominations, and this is one of the years that we had actually watched before Movie Club even became a thing. Daniel, how funny! And this was the same year that Driving Miss Daisy had Morgan Freeman nominated. Daniel Day-Lewis was also the winner for My Left Foot. So it's actually an incredibly strong year, because I remember I watched Dead Poets Society, then I watched Driving Miss Daisy, and then we decided to stop doing it before I watched My Left Foot, which I've not actually seen. Which is funny because Best Actor in a Supporting Role at that point was Denzel for Glory, which is one that we've watched as part of the movie club. But I think for me, Robin Williams is excellent in this, and I always find watching Robin Williams movies is I don't ever feel like he's acting. I feel like he's just him. He's just enjoying himself and what he's doing. And in this movie, like you're drawn into every scene that he's in on a subject I've got absolutely no interest in when it comes to poetry, but I'm going to watch it. I'm going to pay attention. To touch on your comment you said about Ben asking that question about how we do in our high school, and obviously I went to a different high school from you guys, but I think it would matter the subject, but the teacher would be welcomed with open arms, like someone that's not playing by the rules essentially. And I think that if you're in a boarding school environment anyway, like that jumped out massively. Like he's different from what the rules are, and he's a little bit edgy in comparison to what everyone else is like. There's a couple of scenes that jumped out into me that I really enjoyed this, and I just watched this today. So the scene in particular where he starts talking about what poetry is, right? And then you've got the wee ginger guy that's writing it all out word for word as he's getting told into his book. and then he immediately tells people, rip it all out, what a load of shite, express yourselves, be yourself. For me, that was brilliant because it hooks you in that he's just going to follow the process, and they're that used to someone talking them through it step by step is what they would typically get. And then the reaction from the rest of the class getting buzzing, exciting about it was really, really good. And I thought it was really clever that they had them leave the room to go get the bin, whilst the other teacher then intervened to like kick off about what are you guys doing at this point. There's quite a few good actors in this. I actually forgot that Ethan Hawke was in it. Totally passed my mind, but he's actually proper solid in it. I did chuckle when I seen Neil's dad come on the scene because that's the bad guy in RoboCop to me. That's just who that is. So to see him there as like a posh boy's dad, it threw me to start with. And I don't know the guy's name. I'll find it in a little second. But the guy that is in the movie SWAT. Don't know if you've ever seen the movie SWAT.
Years ago.
SWAT with LL Cool J. He plays Knox Overstreet. His name is Josh Charles. He's basically a dickhead in the movie SWAT. And he's in the movie Four Brothers as well, which is a movie I really like. So seeing him, and there was another guy that the two of them just looked the same. They had the exact same look. I was like, are these like playing off as brothers or twins? But they weren't. This is such a good movie. It's one of the very few movies that I'll put on and I'll give my attention to. This was a no FM, no FIFA movie for me. I think that puts it in a high regard if I'm not doing something different when I'm watching it. But I was invested in each of the individual characters as well. Even the little Meeks guy that's a little grass at the end who's like throwing everybody under the bus and giving away all the information. I still liked him throughout it. I think it's good to see the development of some people, even though, and I can never remember which one he is, but the one that's a wee sex pest that's like winching the lassie when she's sleeping. It's a bit of a weird thing to watch nowadays.
Yeah.
Waiting for that.
I've got comments about that as well.
Do you know what though? Like, she's drunk, she's sleeping, he's drunk, he kisses her, he gets caught and he gets levered. Fair play. You deserve it.
But you deserve it more than getting fired.
But it's weird that he then wins her.
Do you think as well that it was like, to me, sorry, I was going to mention this, but you've brought it up, Nicole, is that it was at that point I felt as if were they wanting you to want him to win her? I was thinking, well, no, I want her to stay with the guy that's whatever he's a football player, whatever. Even though to me the film's maybe meant to portray the footballer, or I think he's some kind of sports guy, as if he's meant to be the guy that's the bad guy, portrayed as that. The way I was picking up, because obviously he's part of the society, but then I was like the opposite, because obviously he's the one that's like kissing her when obviously he's blazing and he has sort of made comments that he doesn't drink before, he doesn't usually drink and stuff. But then obviously kisses her when she's sleeping, and then he just turns up at her school and whatever. And even his actions, I just thought he came across as a complete bellend. I thought.
I think it's very, very typical American. It's the jock's a bad guy. The hot girl's with the hot jock, and she should be with a guy who's a bit more sensitive, a bit more caring, a bit more loving. They've just went about it in quite a strange way. I think they could have done without that scene and have him just be a bit persistent and a bit different to what she's used to, and then she falls in love with him. He didn't really need the seedy Sleeping Beauty style.
To me, I didn't even need that romance angle. To me, it added none at the film. I didn't even.
And that's a shock coming from Benji.
Like, it was just like a side point to the film. I was kind of like, well, is it going to go further for you? Because unless I miss that, they obviously go to watch the play together, and I think that's the last time you see them.
They hold hands at that point, so I suppose that's meant to be.
But what means it doesn't go any further than that in terms of you don't see her like in the scenes with him towards the end of the film or that. It's like, alright, they're together, but then as well, they just kind of gloss over the fact that it's done. They get together obviously so quickly. I just thought that it was just a pointless angle they went down.
Okay,
it was just something that.
if we're talking about really creepy scenes in the whole movie, can we talk about the arse paddling?
Hunter did. You, when you're listening, you were listening.
Aye.
My apologies, I nipped off for a comfort break.
I did discuss it in more PC terms than arse paddling.
My apologies, I nipped off for a comfort break. This Jack Daniels has gone through me. But it was so weird to watch. Like, it was one of those cringy moments when we watching, like, and then he walks back off funny, but he gives folk a wink that he's like taking it like a man and he's dealing with it. They didn't need to worry. And then the wee ginger guy goes and throws him onto the bus anyway. So it was a bit weird. But what I wanted to bring up in that was, see the scene where they've got they get pulled in individually to the office to basically grass on Robin Williams' character, right?
Yeah.
And what for me is quite an eye-opening part of it is these boys are what age are they? 16, 17, 18-ish, roughly, maybe a bit younger.
16, 17, aye.
Well, like, I just got, because obviously they were drinking, then I thought maybe they were like 17, 18 or something. That was
Well, mine is 21 in America. I don't even know what it was in 1959, so...
I just thought they were at least 17, 18. I know, like, I was thinking in terms of they're not going to be younger than that, but maybe not.
The point I'm trying to make here is that how telling is it that you bring these super strict mums and dads into a room with a kid that's got his back in the corner and he has to just agree with what he's being told. That was it. They got told what happened and they had to sign a bit of paper to save their own arse. But the pressure coming from the mum and dad to make sure that they got that done is actually quite a big eye-opening thing, especially when you think about like having kids and stuff as well, that you actually can influence it really dramatically. Like they were influenced into saying that he caused a suicide. Like, the reality is that he didn't. The dad was more at fault than Robin Williams.
I think it's not to add into what you're saying is, like, obviously this is after the boys committed suicide, but it adds into the impact that his father was having on him. Not obviously to the same extent, but in terms of how he's committed suicide because of his father. Mm-hmm. And then even after that, you're actually seeing how, as you're pointing out, how much influence the parents have on them. So you can actually add in and see how, even though he's dead at that point, you can see how massive an impact they do have. And as well, when he did commit suicide, it wasn't just it came out from nowhere. The film did a really good way of portraying like his emotion and how he was feeling. Like, he was really struggling. It wasn't as if I don't think I saw it coming, but you could actually understand why it happened.
Yeah.
And then even after it, you can actually still feel the impact that the parents can have instead of it being obviously not the teacher's fault at all.
Well, what does he keep going?
What I would say, man, away, I didn't know he was going to kill himself, because when his dad had woke up and walked in, I'm sure there was like the letter or the envelope on the table before he'd seen the gun. I thought he'd just run a runner. I never expected him to kill himself at all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the same. It took me by surprise, because maybe opposite to Burnsy, I didn't feel a build up towards it. I mean, at the end of the day, right, fucking, this is posh cunts with posh cunt issues. Like, I mean, Daddy wants me to be a doctor, Daddy won't let me be the star of the play, I'm going to kill myself. Like, I don't know, it doesn't resonate with me that bit, to be honest.
Right, Posh Cunts with Posh Cunt Issues is the name of the podcast.
Posh Cunts with Posh Cunt Issues.
Aye.
But it is quite like an emotional part to a sense, because he actually, like, the dad's living his life vicariously through his son. Like, you will do what I say, how I say, and you'll do it with no negotiation. Like, he's just been there and watched his son get a standing ovation for his acting performance on play, and still huckled him out by the ear and flung him in a car basically to tell everyone else to fuck off. It's actually mad how, like, there's no... Because that wasn't what he wanted, that he was spitting the dummy out and that was it. Like, there was no negotiation on there. I've given up this for you to do this.
I think as well, Kyle, I think he's mentions at one point in the film, I don't think it's mentioned what he does for his own job, unless I've missed it, but he makes a comment saying, like, I've worked so hard so that you can actually do this job. So it's like you say, he is living vicariously through his son, and he actually makes a point of being that blatant about it, instead of saying, you're not doing this because the only reason I've worked so hard to put you to this place is because you're going to do what I say. But I thought it was really good in terms of that. The acting was really good throughout it. Obviously, Robin Williams was class. But all the younger actors in Reverend were also good in terms of the ones that the ginger boy who obviously defends. He's the one that ends up getting punched by one of the members of the Poet Society. Is that you were obviously supposed to sort of dislike him, and then that's what I picked up anyway. And it did, even though it was quite subtle at points. Because he obviously is sort of friends with them. But the only thing that I did struggle with was that there was like quite a few students that the film was based around instead of just concentrating on the one. I think it would have worked better for me if it was just based on one student and Robin Williams' character instead of being around 2 or 3 of them. So I kind of wanted it maybe to be more based on Neil Perry's character, for instance, instead of being a wee bit in between of going from student to student. But out with that, I thought it was really good. I don't think it was as good as Whiplash, but it wasn't far off that for me.
Wow. What did you think, Sean?
I found it really boring, if I'm completely honest with you. I'm sorry to bring the tone down, but I did find it really, really boring. I completely agree with what Bundy said there. I was getting a bit confused as to who was who through the film. I thought they all kind of looked relatively quite kind of similar, like just kind of posh boy, tough, Tory look in an American sense. And I was kind of struggling to kind of keep up with all the different school kids, as you would call them. But unless Robin Williams was on the screen, I just kind of found my mind drifting off. I don't know. I thought I wouldn't be alone in this. You all seem to really enjoy it, but I was quite kind of bored throughout. Though I just felt like I didn't really see where it was going, and until obviously when we got to the end, it was more like when his dad came to the play. But I was also confused because his dad had said when he went into the room and his dad was sitting there saying, under no circumstances are you going to be doing that play. And then the next scene he spoke to Robin Williams and he says you need to speak to your dad, and then he doesn't, unless I've missed it, he doesn't show you talking to his dad to say again I'm going to do the play. Actually, I'm not really sure why they never kept that in, because it was quite a big part towards the last half of the story anyway. But I think
I think they loosely touched it and say that his dad's away in business, but I don't know what the timescale is, whether he's already left in business, because when he does do the play, he's shocked to see him there because he's not actually meant to be in the country. But I don't know if I can't remember off the top of my head whether there's like a big gap in the film or it is like literally the next scene. So maybe that's why they didn't have that bit, but I'm not sure.
No, I mean, like, it's just isn't really my kind of film, and I feel like I'm saying this quite a lot. I feel like a total idiot on the phone here, and we watch these films and I'm saying that it wasn't for me, but it's just, I don't know, I just found myself drifting. I was quite bored watching it, and it's nothing bad against the film. There was great actors in it. Robin Williams was brilliant in it, and the range of his acting is just ridiculous. I always kind of associate him with being a silly idiot in films like Mrs. Doubtfire, and like, there's a few other ones. But then when you look at this 1 hour photo as well, which I would love to watch and hear, like his range of acting is just absolutely amazing. And it's a shame, obviously, what happened to him as well. But unless he was on the screen, I just kind of found myself drifting off. If I'm completely honest, I just found really, really bored through it. But I didn't care about anybody at all, and apart from Robin Williams, I did not give a fuck about any of the wee posh boy problems. I didn't care about the dad for that 70s show. I didn't care about any of them at all. I had no interest in their so-called issues that they were having. Like, I mean, their parents have paid thousands or however much money it is to go through this school, blah, blah, blah. Shame you can't go and act in a fucking play. You know what I mean? Who cares? I have no interest in it at all. See, if it was like a scheme, I'd have a lot more interest in it. Like when me and Laurie were away, to the cabin, we watched Ned's. We took DVDs with us because there was a DVD. We watched Ned's.
Oh, Ned
That's,
is
that's, that's real life problems there.
I thought you were just going to tell us you were watching Ned's going about the caravan set, and then you're talking about a full
No.
You watched Ned's live action inside the caravan.
He's going to tell us that all these things on Facebook because we're on holiday.
If you want
Like
to
we're
see,
young team hanging about Piper Dam.
if you want to see real young people go through school and have issues with their teaching, getting the belt, whatever, and issues outside the school, go and watch Ned's. That's real life. This is just fucking rich people issues that we have no time for.
Well, listen, Sean, I think the 6 people that downloaded our podcast in Argentina might not be able to relate to the Neds of Scotland. They might be able to relate a little bit more to the posh kids of America, but I get what you're saying. It is.
No in Argentina, no a country that's probably worse than here. Poverty schemes.
Hunter, I was trying to find a way to drop in with 6 fucking downloads in Argentina. Give me a break, man.
I suppose I'll carry on.
Maybe Narcos made for them, maybe the Nets.
Well, they've just deleted their downloads now, Hunter. Thanks for that.
Just to carry on with what Sean was saying, I totally agree with everything he said, to be honest. I didn't find it boring, right? So, do you know what's weird? Like, I've wrote down 2 scores for this. One of them's below a 2 and one of them's above a 4. And I still we know what I think about this film.
Somewhere in the middle.
This is my biggest issue with this film, is that I cannot relate to anybody in it. I don't have any empathy for anyone. I don't really care about anyone. Much like Sean said, it's rich people with rich people problems, and it's hard for me to care about any of them because I dislike all of them. They're all wee annoying cunts. Every single one of them. And I would even include Robin Williams' character in that. Now, Robin Williams, his performance is amazing, and he's like a really captivating guy, but like this posh cunt teacher that's like trying to go against the grain, but well, why the fuck are you taking a job in a private boarding school then? Go and fucking really teach people or go and be a poet or something, do you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, what's he taught them? To rebel against society a little bit and be your own person, but ultimately you could be like me and end up back here where you fucking started. So like, the overall message he was trying to give the kids didn't really resonate with me. I still don't quite understand what he was trying to achieve, apart from to make them be a bit less fucking boring and to be a bit more interesting. I don't know. It's good though, right? So I've written down in my note here, strangely captivating, right? Because much like you said, Kyle, like I never took my eyes away from this.
Yeah.
It did grab my attention the full time, but like as soon as it finished, I just felt fucking empty. I mean, I don't know. The guy killing himself. We've said this before, like about emotional points in movies, right? I quite like something that's going to really hit me emotionally, or maybe make me have a wee tear come to my eye and stuff like that. And a main character killing themselves towards the end of that movie should do that to me. And earlier on in that scene, Sean was saying he didn't realise he killed himself. I never saw it coming up until the point that he went and opened his window. I thought he was going to jump out the window.
Mm-hmm.
That's coming. But then when he didn't jump out the window, then I was like, oh, he's not going to kill himself. And then, obviously, fucking did. I don't know. I'm still really unsure about whether I like this or not, which is annoying. It's been annoying me for 2 days.
One of the bits that I find, sorry to interrupt, more emotional than that was obviously the ending scene where they all jump on their desks. Like,
yeah, did nothing for me, Kyle. Honestly, see, I know that's the big.
What I found was the part of that is like, and I get that it's obviously planned out this way that Ethan Hawke's character is so scared to talk up and speak out, and he's the first one to do it, and he's the one that they show you in the principal's office, showing a little bit of a, I'm not sure about what you're asking me to do or sign, but I've been forced into it, and he's rebelling against that at that point, and then he jumps on his table and they say, the old captain, my captain. For me, that was a bit more emotionally invested in it than the guy killing himself. The only bit that annoyed me about that it was precisely half the class that stood up on the tables. The rest of them never bothered. So you'd only
They were
really...
just sitting facing forward. It was really weird that I thought that.
Yeah.
As if he knew they were standing on their desk.
I think it was supposed to be. I find now sometimes we've been doing this for a long time, so I figured out what the filmmaker was trying to get you to understand at that point. And I think it was just that the rest of them are just conforming completely. So the visual representation of that is them sitting, staring ahead, not even looking at the guys up on their desks or anything like that, because they're fucking in the system and they're part of this fucking Posh school system and they're never going to go against the grain. Ultimately, if they were going to stand up for themselves, do it before the fucking teacher gets sacked. Like,
Yeah.
and to me, it should have been about standing up to your parents. This film left me empty, I think, because none of them stood up to their fucking mom and dad by then.
Mhm.
Like, the whole team, whoever made this movie, and I'm just making a wild assumption here, right, is a posh cunt with a fucking overbearing dad. And this is someone putting their life out on screen, right? And for as good a sense, right, because there was a moment that was mentioned earlier on where you expect things to go a certain way, they don't. Right? And it does that quite a few times in this film, where you've got certain expectations where when the dad turns up to the play, in 99.9% of movies, at that moment where he's standing at the back of the hall and the wee guy Neil's like doing his monologue to his dad and looking at him, that's where the dad turns out and goes, "Oh, son, it was me that's been incorrect the whole time, and I should have been listening to you." But he doesn't. Like you said, he just huckles him home. And then Neil gets a chance to stand up for himself. And instead of just standing up for himself to his dad, he kills himself, right? And to me, that's too fucking dramatic a swing for me to buy into. I mean, like, he's not been abused, he's no... Just fucking leave, you're 18-year-old or whatever. Just fuck off. Like, you don't need to be taking that for your mum. Like, and this is where I still don't quite understand what the ending was supposed to symbolise. I mean, it's okay to the bell, but not enough to make a difference. I mean, like, you can make a symbolic stand, but when it comes to it and you get taken down to actually stand up for yourself, don't do it. I mean, it's maybe a bit weird. But I'm shitting all over this, like, but I do like Ethan Hawke. I think Ethan Hawke's amazing in this. I believe, see, too many folk with stutters in movies have, like, a really obvious stutter, right? And it just becomes almost comical. But see his little hesitations at the start of all his sentences and all that was amazing, man, because Ethan Hawke later on in his career is a bitch shit. And it's really disappointing when you go back and see this to see what he could, because I think his performance is brilliant. But much like Sean said, the rest of them all just merge into one big posh cunt to me. They're all just the same. And the guy that's like the sex pest and the main guy and are very, very much the same person to me. And I think there's a third guy. So there's Neil, there's a sex pest, and then is the sex pest the same guy that got paddled in the arse?
So this is a bit where I get confused because
No,
to me,
that's
they both
something.
look.
That's Charlie. Sorry.
So
No.
Charlie and Knox look identical to each other. Same haircut,
They
same
do.
height, same face. So that I struggled with that because I recognise one of them is Josh Charles, who plays Knox, but the other guy Charlie, they just look the same. So it was hard when it came on screen of who was who.
Yeah, I found it really hard to separate because even their personalities were fairly similar. They were the only two that were kind of interested in birds or like peanut. Because so the adult is the one that brought the two birds back to the cave, right?
Yeah.
He was a pest as well, actually. I think I completely forgot about that scene. I think so. Just to interrupt what you were saying, Daniel, it's like I think, like when I was giving my review, as it looks like it's still going to be a decent score, but I think like you're also saying you're shut over it and think you're sort of probably going to get a better score than what you're going to give it. Whereas I was sort of praising the film all the way through, but at the same time, I'd like my score's probably going to reflect that too. Like I was going to just add on, is that you made a comment about how. I think I just worded it wrong in terms. In terms of suicide, I didn't think he was going to. I didn't expect him to actually kill himself, but I expect him to like either leave or kill himself or something. It wasn't as if it just came out of nowhere in terms of thinking, oh shit, he's not got any reason to understand, or even you can't get inside his mind to think how he's going to kill himself. It was more just the fact I could actually see his emotions building and being his dad was just that much a cunt towards him that you could actually feel it happening. But it was It was. I thought it was, and I also, as like Sean has said, I thought it was maybe just me because at the start I was struggling with it a wee bit in terms of to keep invested for it, and then as the film got further and further in, I enjoyed it more. And I actually thought the same in terms of I was getting confused a wee bit with the actors, but I thought it was just because at the start I wasn't 100% paying attention to it. And then once you sort of understood the characters more, then you were able to sort of figure out who was who, just with how their actions were, I thought.
I did start to pick it up later on. I think it's just the general little posh schoolboy. They're all very similar. I mean, it's posh schoolboy 1 who's in love with a girl, posh schoolboy 2 who's a pervert, posh schoolboy 3 who doesn't like speaking in front of class. Like, they were just interchangeable sort of guys. And I don't know, man. Like, I think, see if you grow up, like, I won't mention names of folk in this group, but like, see if you grow up with a hard life, like, especially when it comes to shit that you can go through with your parents and all that, right? Getting told you need to go to Harvard is just, that's where I disconnect. It's not relatable to me. I think this is only relatable. And it's a much like Marriage Story, right? I had the same issue with Marriage Story, that you're supposed to have this deep emotional connection with the characters, but ultimately their lives are so far away from anything that I can relate to that I find it difficult. But it is a good film, right? That's what's hard about this. I understand why people like this. I really do. I understand why people could even give it fucking 4s and 5s out of 5, because it's well acted, it's well made, it's a good movie. And I'd imagine if you grew up and went to one of these schools and you went to Harvard and you grew up with overbearing parents that really wanted you to succeed, then you'd maybe relate to it a bit more. If your dad growing up just fucking didn't give a fuck, then it's different. You know what I mean? So I don't know. But I'm leaning more towards Sean, and I'm glad that I've got to speak out, because now I've decided between my scores.
Well, Hunter, I'm sure you've got some trivia to add into this one.
I do indeed, yes. So at the premiere, Kurt Woodsmith, who played Neil's dad, saw a family with a very similar dominating father. So after the film finished, he noticed that the family leaving the cinema, and the dad was actually crying, so he must have realised the similar traits between himself and the character. Robin Williams considered this one of his favourite films he's ever made, and Paul Weir, I can't remember, it's Pete Weir, I've not got written down, as his favourite director. So Liam Neeson was originally meant to play the role of Keating, but because there was a director change, that ended up Robin Williams was cast as Keating rather than Liam Neeson.
Would have been a definitely
there's a character called Carey who plays Hopkins. So when they're doing the scene, where they're kicking a football, they're going to be like the most 11 collective worst strikes of a football I think I've ever seen. Out with my United playing Southampton on Saturday.
Or the boys playing 10 plus.
Oh god! Every one of those shots.
At this point,
back to 5s.
This boy basically kicks a football and delivers a line. The cat sat on a mat, and he was a student at the school at the time where they made the film, and he, due to filming that one scene, made more than any other teacher in the school that year for doing one scene.
Fuck's sake, man.
And he was an extra. Matt Damon and Ben Affleck both auditioned for unknown roles in the movie, and never got them.
That story inspired them to go and make Good Will Hunting, which is much better.
Yeah. It was the first Touchstone Pictures released to get a Best Picture nomination for the Oscars, and it was also the only Best Picture nomination that year that also got a nomination for Best Screenplay. And also on the original script, Keating was meant to die of leukemia rather than get sacked for causing the death of a student, but it was then scripted. They changed the script so that the film was then more focused on the students rather than on Keating himself as the main character. He was then just a bit part, whereas it was all the students. And also, Neil's death is foreshadowed earlier on in the film, because when Robert Williams' character was doing one of the first couple of speeches with the students, where he says, you're just going to shrivel up, turn cold and die. So when he says that, the camera's actually on Neil at that point in time during the film.
Didn't Didn't even clock. I'm just looking at some of the best pictures nominations from that year. Like, seems like some year, because the winner was Driving Miss Daisy. You've obviously got Dead Poet Society, My Left Foot, Field of Dreams, which is another one, Daniel, that I watched that week that we were watching these movies, and the Born on the 4th of July, which is one that I never watched. So it seems like a really strong year.
Depends if you class this as strong or not.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't know.
See you in a minute.
We'll all see in a minute, and we're going to kick off with the first half of Hunter.
Aye, so I now know that we're going to have very contrasting views going by Daniel's last night. However, I do take on board what he said. There is something missing. It's still a very, very, very good film, but it's not in that 45 category for me. That 45 is up there for the elite. This is very good and would highly recommend it, but it's not in that level for me. That said, it's getting 3.75 out of 5.
A 3.75. I had the number 3 typed as soon as you started talking. Daniel, I've got the number 2 typed. What am I putting after it?
I've talked myself into this score of a 2.
Just a 2?
I was a 1.75, but I've given it a 2.
Burnsy?
I'm giving it a 3.25, which is 0.5 lower than what I scored Whiplash.
Interesting. I can't remember what I scored Whiplash, but this is getting a solid 4 for me.
I can tell you, I was actually on that if you want to know. What did you give Whiplash?
I'd imagine I give Whiplash higher.
You gave it a 4.5.
Yeah, I would still give Whiplash higher than this, but thoroughly enjoy this film. 4 for me. Mr. Excitement himself, Sean?
A 1.75 for me.
It's just been a week of movie you've just hated, Sean, isn't it?
I know.
Back to the going, that's
come
it.
back to that. Hopefully next week's will be better for me.
Well, we'll get on to the next wheel spin shortly for the week for the time after. Burnsy, what does that give us overall for this one?
Overall, that's a 2.95.
A 2.95. Any predictions in the movies that this will be alongside?
What did I get? A 2.95?
2.95.
I'll be in fairly highly esteemed company. What's that, about 30, 40 odd?
Just 2.95 brings it joint 58th
Oh, nice.
with one of the most underrated movies I've got on the list of The Wanderers. So it puts it at 0.5 above Don't Look Up. And it puts it a 0.1 below Planet of the Apes, which was obviously highly influenced by Ben's vote at that point.
Planet is worse than this.
But other movies in the up and down from it are like District 9, Heat is above it. Below it we've got Bridesmaid, Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Into the Wild. So yeah, a 2.95 for Dead Poet Society. So that recaps the movies that we have watched for this week. Reservoir Dogs 2.4, Dead Poet Society 2.95. Quite close when it comes to the scoring overall, but quite varied in the scoring between us, which I always find dead interesting. So cue the abuse when it comes to Instagram getting to see those figures. As we touched on, guys, we are not streaming next week. One of us is going under the knife, so we'll be unable to speak and appear at all on the stream that day. So that will be postponed until the 28th. Please keep an eye on Instagram itself to see which movies that we will be watching. We have behind the scenes selected the actresses that will be going up onto the voting as well as the movies. So keep an eye on that to be involved. Again, that's at Morons Reviewing Movies on Instagram. What I'm going to do now in the background is we're just going to spin the wheel to see what is going to be for the next additional recording for voting. So that is coming up now. I would ask you predictions, but there's shitloads on the list itself, so there's no point even guessing. Daniel, we have non-MCU comic movies.
We've got MCU, non-MCU comic book movies.
Non-MCU superhero / comic movies.
Oh,
Superman, baby.
I am buzzing for this.
There we
I'm
go.
looking forward to this actually.
I think I'll enjoy these. I think these are out with my comfort zone.
Now, if it was up to me, I would also like to keep DC out of the way as well and make these all non-traditional comic book movies. But
That's not in the wheel. We need
In
to.
fact, I've just had a thought. When would we be watching these? Time it for the Batman release at the cinema.
we could go and see the Batman at the cinema. March 4th that comes out, so we'll be streaming this on March 7th.
Oh, there we go. That's one movie decided. So we have to include
Right.
DC.
Right, that's the DC one done, and we'll have a non-DC side.
For fuck.
What's your thoughts on that, Sean?
You go, right, I just don't want to watch another fucking Batman or Superman, but we'll see.
I like to watch Superman 2. No, sorry, Superman 3.
Just to put it out there that this may quash the thoughts and feelings in that. If we are going to obviously add in DC, we will have to add in Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Well, no, we don't, because that wasn't actually a part of the DCEU anyway, right?
Well, it is.
No.
We might have the
4 hours, you can go back and watch it yourself.
guys. If we
No, just I always say that I won't watch it, and I will never voluntarily watch it, but if it comes up, I can't wait to shite all over that and give it a 0.
Zack Snyder's Justice League a 0 alongside Zulu Dawn.
Yeah.
And I'd give it a 5 just to piss you off that it'd be right up there in the ratings as well.
Look at my 0, I'll negate all of that, so it doesn't matter.
I'd imagine it might get 4 zeros plus your 5.
4 zeros plus my 5. Well, guys, we will take this debate and argument offline about what it is, because obviously we don't typically argue about movies or selections or choices or whatever you want to say, do we, guys?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
It's just a week solid of us hating each other in a group chat to then come on board and talk to each other all pleasantly.
Me, Hunter and Sean get on fine.
Do you know what it is Daniel's
Like upset.
Daniel's
enjoying the entertaining chat and the fucking WhatsApp.
the way I see it is, well, I'm Robin Williams from Dead Poets Society, and Daniel's the headmaster. We must conform or not else.
Hot the bar side, your main thing is about weird rules that we made up that we have to then follow. So, like, you've just totally contradicted yourself. But also, right, we had an argument this week, almost, right? We started off with you saying that I'm not arguing about it. Now, what happened is you've taken that as me saying I'm not arguing about it, as in.
So, guys, that's the end of tonight's podcast. This will be released for all to listen to. Thanks very much for being there, and have a good night. I bid you morons farewell.
See you later.